Okay, it's showtime, folks. Just starting us up, making sure the microphone is not muted like it was last week. That the camera's in the right place. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you. Right, we are live all over the place, and we are talking about social norms for women. We've got Rihanna, who's joined us in the room. Let me just let you be a moderator. It's always fun starting this up. Hang on a second, make a moderator. There we go. Rihanna, how are you? Can you talk?
Yes, I am well. If you hear weird sounds in the background, it's my dog eating his lunch.
Okay. A happy dog, it must be.
Happy dog, Mum.
Yes, excellent. I love that. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm excited about today. Are you, Rihanna? I'm so excited.
Yes, I am super excited for today, that's for sure.
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant. Me too. And I've really enjoyed learning this stuff. So today's subject, I would say, is one of those subjects that I've not studied in depth. It's not something that I've spent years researching and talking about, but it is something that I'm deeply interested in. And I found myself the last 2 days squirreled away reading about all of this stuff. And I know a lot about this, but not as deeply as I want to know. So I'm going to be referring to a few notes as we go on throughout the day. But first of all, let me just say welcome to all of you who have joined us. It's great to have you here. We've got Rihanna, Marie, Laurence, we've got Holly, Carly, Grace, and Helen. It's great to see you. And for those of you joining live from all over the place, hello, welcome. First of all, I need you to know that if you are sharing on the social media apps, it is possible that it's recorded on Clubhouse and it will go out to a number of different streams. So just make sure that if you are speaking, you're happy with what you're saying and you're happy with that to be recorded. And also, I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Lucienne. Those of you watching, those of you listening probably know me already, but those of you watching on replay, every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, I go live with the community of extraordinary women who are an amazing band of women who want to learn and grow their businesses and themselves, more importantly, so that they can live a life that they love. And we've created such a fantastic community, which we open the doors to again in February, on the 2nd of Feb, which is so exciting. I've just sent an email out to the wait list for the first time in 2 years, and we beta tested it for a year. We have more people on the wait list than we have places, and the community is being talked about in some very, very, very good spaces. So I'm really excited. We just have to make sure, Rihanna, that we keep the quality over quantity every single time, which is why we only have 25 places for people who want to join. And the doors are currently closed. So that's us, that's who we are. And today we're talking about social norms for women. So I thought I'd kick us off really quickly with a brief description of what social norms are. Then I would love to introduce everybody here that's in the collective and just ask you what you do. I really like to showcase the businesses that are in the collective and the people that are in the collective. It's great for their business. It's great for me to show credibility as well. So it's a really good thing to do if you own a community, to bring your community in, to shout them out. That's so important, because there is a wealth of experience and expertise within a community that is just so worth hearing from. And then we will make sure the room is reset and we'll do some questions. I've got no idea where today is going to go, to be honest. No idea at all. All I know is it's going to be a great conversation and a great piece of learning. So you can tick that learning box off for yourself for this week, if you have attended this room and you've been making some notes as we go on. Okay, so social norms. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it, really? Because how do you actually define a social norm? It's a difficult thing to define and to put a pin in. So what I have found is a definition that says basically it's a set of rules or customs and standards that are understood. And that's a really important word. So you might want to write that down and underline it, that are understood by members of a group, that guide or constrain, another word to underline, social behaviours without the force of law. So I'm going to say that again. They are rules and standards understood, and I underline that, big underlines underneath understood by members of a group that guide or constrain, underline that as well, social behaviours without the force of law. So as you introduce yourselves this afternoon, I would love for you to say who you are, what you do, and I would love if you can think of a social norm, just throw it in at the end. One social norm that I can think of where I live or what I do, because we have people in the membership from Somalia, from California, from all over the world, and social norms are different depending on where you live in the world. Okay, so Rayana, I'm going to come to you first. Who are you? What do you do? And have you got a social norm that you can think of to kick us off?
Thank you, Lucy. And as soon as you said that, I thought of Blind Date. Who are you and where'd you come from? Thought of that straight away.
Glad I sound like Scylla today. That's wonderful.
Oh, I loved that programme.
No,
anyway,
I did.
To the point. So I am Rayana. I am the founder of Whole Health and Fitness. I mentor women to run from couch to 5K. I've lost 4.5 stone and learned strategies to overcome anxiety and depression for myself. I have also worked with a nutritionist to create a 12-week nutrition programme. And I am also the community empowerment manager for the collective of Extraordinary Women. A social norm that I can think of. Well, I think the thing that comes to my head is when I am trying to get something done, I feel like I'm being bossy. But when I see men do it, it's being decisive and getting stuff done. So I guess the social norm is, to myself, the thing I'm telling myself is, don't be bossy when really decisive action needs to be taken. I hope that's along the right lines, Lucienne.
Yeah, I love that. And to be honest with you, Rayana, there is no right or wrong here. This is, and the word that is going to come up again and again and again. And I knew it when I prepared this. I was like, this word, I'm going to bring it out at the end, and it's going to be the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, and it's going to make us all aware of what's going on. And obviously, because we're such an astute group of people, we're aware straight away that this is subjective. A social norm is subjective. So I would have that written down underneath, needs to be understood by everybody. And what does that even mean? It's constraining for many, a lot of the time. And it is subjective as well. There are a lot of good points around social norms, which we will come to, but we're talking about social norms for women and the impact on identity for women, which is fascinating. I mean, honestly, we could talk about this for weeks. So yeah, thanks for kicking us off, Rayana. You always start us off so nicely, and we love having you as our social community empowerment manager for the collective. I absolutely love it. Marie-Laurence, I'm coming to you next. Long time no speak, joking, because we spoke very, very short time ago. Can you speak now? Let's have a look if she flashes her mic. Press the mic button if you can speak now. If not, we're going to move over to Holly. Okay. Holly, can you speak now? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Who are you? What do you do? And what's your idea of a social norm?
Hello everyone, so I'm Holly and I'm a team leader for a big corporate company, and I enjoy supporting my team grow and develop themselves. And with regards to social norms, I feel a little bit undereducated on this, so I'm really interested to kind of take it away a lot today. But I guess a social norm that I probably feel is that women are quite quiet, I would say, in meetings and in that sort of corporate work environment, and perhaps can occasionally get talked over, or not seem to kind of be, I guess, similar to like as dominant and therefore taken as seriously.
Yeah, absolutely, Holly. Love that, because that's been studied and researched as well in the corporate world, and women are much less likely to speak up, and that's very often the case, because they are often a minority in those situations. So it's a really good point, very well made, and is backed by a lot of evidence as well. So it's changing, it's beginning to change, but a lot of the corporate coaching that I used to do with execs was supporting them in using their voice. I run a national program, a female empowerment program for 12 weeks with some very large organizations. And one of the modules within that is the power of your voice, and learning to use your voice and stepping into the discomfort of using your voice. And just flash your mics if you have ever felt uncomfortable speaking your opinion. So this is a very common trait for women, and it's not as common for men. So great point, Holly. Thank you for sharing that. Grace, I'm not sure if you're able to speak, so if you can flash. Yeah, who are you? What do you do? And what's a social norm that you can think of?
Hi everyone, I'm Grace. I work in film and entertainment. I manage the Harry Potter franchise internationally for Warner Brothers. And social norms, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. The first one I could think of, Lucia, if I'm being really honest, was that I shave my legs. Women shave their legs. I don't do that. That's just a social norm. It's an expensive one at that. But then I really related to what everyone said. I think the one I was thinking of was about kind of being polite, or rather having to swallow my own discomfort and to make sure that other people are comfortable. I don't know if that is a social norm, but I do tend to feel that for women in particular within kind of work environments. So that's where my head went straight away.
Yeah, Rayanna's going to have something to say about that. Rayanna?
Oh my gosh, I'm very, very passionate about that. Just the way that my husband can chuck on a pair of shorts when it's hot, and I have to prepare to wear a pair of shorts. It absolutely drives me nuts. And what drives me even more nuts is that I don't feel comfortable enough not to prepare my legs to wear shorts. And that's what really, really grinds my go. I want to be at the stage where I say, I'm going to have my legs au naturel, but I am not there yet. Why not? I want to know why not. So I'm not going to stop until I'm happy to go out with my hairy legs. And I want my girls to know that their body is amazing exactly as it is. And I don't want them to feel like, for society's sake, they need to shave their legs. So yeah, I'm so passionate about that, Grace.
I can see Grace flashing away. Do you want to come back?
Oh, amen. That's all I want to say. Amen. I'm with you. I'm on the mission with you.
I love it. And it's about personal choice. And honestly, if we were to be completely honest with ourselves, if we had the personal choice of whether or not, complete personal choice, which we think we have, right? We think we have the personal choice to shave our legs. However, if we don't do that, the impact of not doing that means that we could potentially, and this is the very primitive part of our brain speaking to us, could potentially be cast out of the group because we are different and we are going against a social norm. And that, in its most primitive form, is what human beings do not like to do, to go against the grain. And that's how social norms work so well. Being a German woman, born and bred, having an English mother, finding it very, very liberating and incredible to spend summer holidays all the way through my mid to late teens with hair under my arms and no one caring, it not being an issue at all whatsoever, and then coming back to the UK and having to shave because that's what you did. I still shave actually because I prefer it, and I think that's it, isn't it? If we had the choice, what would our preference be? Would our preference be to do that? At the moment, for me, yes, I would choose to shave under my arms because I like how it feels. But would it be that way if I'd only ever experienced having hair under my arms? Anyway, that's a very philosophical question, and we'll come back to all of that. Great points from Grace. As always, love having you here, Grace. Thank you so much. And we've got Carla as well. Hello, Carla. Have you been on Clubhouse before? I think yeah.
Hello. Hi. I must be honest, this is very brave for me because speaking is not something I do very easily. My name's Carla, and I am a coach and online business manager. I started a business called Carve Executive, and I support amazing, amazing women in their visions of success. I'm also a mother to 2 children, and my social norm, I have to say, is very much around how my ex-husband was able to go out and have great success in his career whilst I was working, but I was also almost expected, without being told, to take care of the kids and look after the house. And those are my social norms. Is that allowed?
Yeah, you can say whatever you like. This is about what we perceive. And Carla, we find that a lot in this space, that a lot of people who don't usually like to speak come in and do find that this is a really safe place to talk. So I'm really glad that we've got that with you, Carla. Thank you so much for coming up. Yeah, thank you. Hope we see you here every week on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Cool. So we've got Carla, which is absolutely fantastic. And then we've got Dr. Maggie, who's joined us. Hello, Dr. Maggie. I don't know if you can talk. Just flash your mic if you can. Excellent. Hello, we'd like to hear who you are, what you do, and what's your understanding of one social norm that you have that lives itself out in your life, do you think?
Super. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Maggie Andy. I guess I'm probably known on Clubhouse as being a holistic dentist. But alongside that, I do mindset, attitude, and perseverance coaching, mainly for sports people and obviously fellow dentists as well. And yeah, I'm all about sort of women empowerment. I do lots of social impact work. I think probably the most fun thing I do is lots of charity work. So I come from a very small kingdom in the southern part of Nigeria, and our kingdom ethos is always, almost give more than you make, if you wanted to take it that far. But generally speaking, we don't sort of give to receive. We just give because we give with a free heart, and we actually get more joy from seeing other people coming up behind us and developing, rather than us kind of being at the top and enjoying a nice life. So that's kind of my ethos. So yeah, I'm all about social impact and just seeing what other people are up to. And I love the camaraderie of Clubhouse. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Lucia. And I know from time to time we touch base on Instagram. And yeah, I'm just here to support, and I'll definitely listen in. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Maggie. And I love you. I love you. I love the way you speak. I love when we have met, how wonderful you are. You brought your daughter to an event, and it was wonderful to meet her as well, and everything that you stand for. So was it your daughter or was it a niece? I can't remember.
No, that was one of my young cousins. No, my kids are still a little bit little for those
yes.
events. My oldest is only 13, so that's one of my young cousins. She's very, very shy, and she's 21 now, and we're just trying to kind of bring her into her life because she's such a wonderful person. And I think events like that are just key for her, give her the opportunity to meet more people. So she absolutely loved it, and she loved meeting Tim's story as well. So that was brilliant.
Absolutely amazing, fantastic. Yeah, it was lovely to see you and her there. And yeah, the idea of a social norm, it's really interesting what you were saying about social enterprises. So women are far more likely to give and not expect in return. It's part of what we call the nest building. They say it's a gene, but it's not. The nest building, that women want to create spaces for people where they feel welcome, and they don't expect anything in return. And there's a lot of research around that as well. And here's a little idea for you. I was talking to somebody earlier on, and you can do a little experiment in Clubhouse if you like. And you can go into rooms that are run by men, predominantly men, on Clubhouse, and just have a look at how many of the links that are put up at the top of the room are for women's products and services, and how many of them are for men's products and services. And just have a look at that all over the place. Wherever you go into a room that is run by a community or by just men, not a room that's run just by women, because you're going to see women's links in there. Just have a look at that. And that is a really true indicator of this social norm that we see outside of Clubhouse and you could say Clubhouse is a microcosm of society where women do not push themselves as much in those spaces. And it's absolutely fascinating to me. Okay, brilliant. Lovely to have you here, Dr. Maggie. Sarah, coming to you. Who are you? What do you do? And what's a social norm that you can think of?
I've made the room. I'm really chuffed.
Yay! We love having you here. Woohoo!
Oh, and it's so nice to be part of this and hear you guys speak. So my name's Sarah. I'm from Brave Bird Club. So part of that is about inspiring women to be brave. Social norms. Let me see. I had it when you messaged me about this room yesterday. I had something come up last night that I thought, wow, that's really relevant. So I was sat on my computer getting some work done, and had the kids about, my husband about, and everyone kept interrupting me. And I got the rage. I was like, will you just leave me alone? My husband was like, why are you making so much of a fuss about getting this bit of work done? I said, I'm not. I'm like pissed off because when you sit down to work, everyone seems to respect it that you're on your computer when you're working. When I do it, I don't get the same level of respect. I was quite ragey when I said it, and in hindsight I realised it's because my boundaries aren't so strong. He just all he's doing, he's not doing anything wrong when he works. He just makes it clear, look, I'm sat here, this is what I'm doing, and I can't be interrupted. Whereas I must be a bit like, oh, sometimes you can talk to me, sometimes you can't, and that's sending out mixed messages. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting for the conversation today, Lucienne. And yeah, thanks for bringing me in. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, love it, Sarah. Thank you for being here. That is a fascinating one. Absolutely fascinating. So I don't know if any of you have read any of Barack Obama's work or know anybody who worked in his office. It's well known from women that worked with him that there was a policy around the table whenever they had meetings, in any meeting that was involved in the White House or White House company business, basically, that if a woman spoke and she was spoken over, everybody had to stop. The woman was asked to repeat what she had said, and it wasn't until everybody around the table had repeated her words that they could move on, because he wanted an active policy of rewriting the fact that women are often spoken over. And yes, sometimes that's to do with a societal construct, but sometimes it's to do with the boundaries that we have in place. I'm sure there are plenty of families where there are men in the family who don't have that boundary in place and women who do. For example, in my house, Jackson knows when I'm working not to disrupt me. If my partner's working, Jackson's all over him. So I think it does come down to your boundaries. But as you quite rightly say, Sarah, there are lots of places where women are spoken over. And unless there is actual policy to ensure that women's voices are heard, that social norm doesn't actually change. And we'll be talking about that later on. I've had a few messages in on Instagram which are fascinating. So Shannon Howe, who runs a home meal delivery service, absolutely brilliant, in the Northamptonshire area, says women's eating habits are really tied to social norms. And she says that women being expected to cook too, we find that a lot of our evening meal clients are women who often feel bad or guilty for not wanting to cook for themselves, which is really interesting as well. Awesome stuff. Right, we're going to come to Suad, who is also in the collective of Extraordinary Women, and then we'll do a reset, and then we'll do a bit more learning. So Suad, who are you? What do you do? Yeah.
Suad can't speak at the moment. She can only listen in, but if she can speak a bit later, she'll flash.
Yeah, no problem at all. Absolutely awesome. So Louise, that means if you want to speak, you can flash your mic. If you want to. No, but yeah. Who are you? What do you do, Louise? And what's an idea of a social norm?
Hi everyone, I'm Lou and I run one of the leading wedding websites in the UK, and I'm all about helping couples have a happy wedding experience. I missed the start, so apologies if this has already been covered, but for me growing up, it still infuriates me now, is the sort of, if you're sort of the gender sort of colours and hobbies, depending on what gender you are. So growing up, I loved football, and I was sort of a bit unusual perhaps for my age to be
loving football, but I never felt like I was taken seriously as a girl to be interested in that sport. And the same with sort of colours. I hate it when I shop for my kids and you go into the shop and one side is pink and one side is blue, and it really, really irks me. So I think that's something for me, is that why can't any gender play any sport, have any hobby, or wear what they want, essentially?
Yeah, what a great one. And no, that hasn't been said yet, and that's a really interesting one that I don't even have in my notes, Louise, so absolutely fantastic. And whilst Louise is not a member of the Collective of Extraordinary Women, she is very tight within our circle, and I highly recommend you have a look at what she does, because oh my god, I just get lost in her Instagram page. It's absolutely ridiculous, because it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Okay, folks, right, we're going to have a reset of the room, and then we're going to come back to a bit of learning. So have a sip of tea or some water or whatever. Get your pens and pads ready. There'll be a bit of learning, a little bit of coaching, and then we will summarise the room and we'll head off into our Wednesday. Rayanna, over to you.
Thank you, Lucienne. You are in the CEW Club, which stands for the Collective of Extraordinary Women, being brought to you by Master Accredited Female Empowerment Specialist Coach Lucienne Shakir, and me, the Community Empowerment Manager, Rayanna Bryant. This room is being recorded, so as well as being live here in Clubhouse, the room is live streamed to Instagram and LinkedIn. You can find us here every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and you can make sure that you never miss a room by giving the club a follow simply by clicking on the little green house next to the room title. You can keep up to date with what's going on in the collective on Facebook and Instagram by searching at the c.e.w. Plus, you can follow Lucienne across social media platforms such as Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook by searching at Lucienne Coaching, or by subscribing to her podcast, That's What She Said. At the top of the room, you will find a strategy quiz and support guide, because I remembered to put it there, that helps you deep dive into finding out what's stopping you from growing a business you love, along with actionable steps tailored to your needs. We're a female empowerment-driven club, and we love to welcome new voices up to the stage. But we can only invite you up if you have a profile picture, something in your bio, and an active link to your Instagram or Twitter account. We also love to welcome our male allies on stage, and we respectfully request that any shares are in support of the women you hear speaking on stage, and that you keep your shares to a short 30 seconds. When you're invited up to stage, your mic is automatically open, so please make sure you click to mute straight off the bat until it's your turn to speak, so that the conversation can continue to flow. Okay, Lucienne, that's the room reset over. Back over to you.
Thank you so much. And as you were doing that, it's funny because I'm stood here in front of lots of cameras. Honestly, it's like I'm in some sort of spacecraft in my home office today. I've set this all up and I'm speaking into a couple of cameras and I'm speaking into Clubhouse. There's a lot of buttons to press and to make sure that I'm doing it right. And for the first maybe 3 or 4 seconds, I'm nodding away as you're talking. I'm like, oh, yes, everybody can see me. And so I need to make sure that I'm kind of presentable. And so when you say Lucienne Shakir, Master Accredited Coach, I'm always a little bit bashful and shy. And today I actually pointed at myself when you said it. So there you go, Rayanna, took ownership, which I know that you will really love. And I also had the time whilst you were speaking, Rayanna, to have a look at the chat feed that's come in on the LinkedIn Live, which is absolutely phenomenal. So Catherine Fasanella has said, speak up and be heard. I take charge in a man's world. Hi from Malika, who's talking about having the choice. And here I'm going to say something about a social norm, which is really important if you want to do business with people in the UK. I don't know about other places around the world. I don't know where this person is from, but underneath all of the comments, we have somebody who's posted who said, hi, are you thinking for a good web designer? I'm a professional web designer with 2 years experience. I can make very beautiful designs according to your choice. I will provide unlimited revision, you and lifetime support. If you want any kind of design, please contact me. In my opinion, In the UK, if you send someone a message like that when they are doing a live stream, which has taken a lot of time to prepare and research for, you're bringing lots of people together, that is one of the worst ways of doing business. That is one sure way to put off a lot of people from working with you. Create engagement with people who need your services rather than forcing yourself upon them. That's really important. So a social norm that we have in the UK business world, maybe not actually, maybe it's not UK, maybe it's just how I expect to be treated, is to not have people selling to me all the time, constantly, when I don't know them. So that's something that's really important to take into account. So there you go. I've just had my little rant. Fun stuff. But I think it's important that people know, because that person might not know. You might not know, and now you do. So hopefully that helps you. Right, I've got my notes in my hand, and I'm going to talk to you about social norms. So grab your pen and your piece of paper, because you can learn some stuff, maybe you can teach me some things as well, because this is all new to me. And when a question comes up, please feel free to flash your mics. And Rayanna, you can just jump in and say, so and such wants to ask a question or whatever, because I'm looking at my notes and I might not actually be looking at the screen as this goes on. So when it comes to social behaviours and what it means for our identity as a woman, historically, it's absolutely fascinating. So the definition that I read out earlier was that a social norm is a rule or a standard understood by members of a group that guide or constrain social behaviours without the force of law. And what is fascinating about history is whenever women have become, in air quotes, if you can't see me and I'm actually doing it on camera, too big for their boots, if they have begun to rise above the patriarchy at any point in social history, there are only a couple of places in the world where matriarchy still exists. It has been stamped out very, very quickly. And I'll give you a few examples of this over different generations. So firstly, religion. Religion not only sought to make sure that people had some kind of path to live by, and there's many parts of religion that are absolutely wonderful when it comes to social norms, not stealing, lying, etc. However, the social norms ascribed later on to women through religion have been really detrimental to women's growth and development in all sorts of spheres, like economy, like wealth, like family management, etc., etc., travel, as an example. So religion is a big factor in how social norms have been created around the world historically. And then you have an example of the witch hunt. So you have examples of when women were burnt at the stake for basically women got a little bit too powerful, and there was a lot of scaremongering and an easy way to point a finger in a time of need, and women took the brunt of that. So a lot of women were massacred during that time across Western society. And then more recently, in recent history, in the example of football. So during the Second World War, the women's teams, not national team, but the women's teams were drawing in really large crowds, very, very large crowds. And when the war ended and men came back from the war, they were drawing in larger crowds than the men's game. And the FA stamped out women's football, basically. And it's starting to grow again, women's football, but they're just a few examples of when women have grown and where women have become something that is bigger than the patriarchy, it has been very quickly stamped out. And they're just a few small examples of how that's happened. Now, social norms, there's a few different variants of social norms. I'm just going to have a look at the screen to see if anybody's flashing, because feel free to challenge me on any of this. Like I say, I've just been reading on this for a couple of days, so it's not deep within my knowledge base. Okay, excellent stuff. Right. So there are 4 different ways that norms exist, and they are as follows. And this was really interesting to me. So the first one is folkways, FOLKWAYS. So these norms that we have, they're internalized by us, and we conform to them without any external rewards or punishment. Okay, so these 4 things that I'm about to share with you come from Chanel Sanchez's work on social norms. So you've got folkways. And an example of a folkway when it comes to a social norm is basically like in Victorian England, if you were sat at a dinner table, you wouldn't chew with your mouth open and then burp without excusing yourself. That was a social norm that was, you know, and it still exists today. I mean, I cannot, just flash your mics if you cannot stand it when people eat with their mouth open. It's just horrific. I just hate it. That's a social norm. Okay, that is a folk way norm. That is the way of the folk and the people. In some parts of the world, eating with your mouth open is actually, you know, really celebrated, and it's something that shows that you are really enjoying your food. So this is completely subjective to the cultures and the norms in which we live. Then we have mores, and each one of these goes up in severity, basically. So you have folkways to begin with, then you have mores, M-O-R-E-S, and these are a real violation of moral behaviour. And an example of this would be, and Chanel gave some really good examples in her work. She did this for Oregon State University, is you wouldn't attend a funeral in a bikini for no reason. Okay, you might be a really eccentric person and you might have known the person would really like it, etc., but it would be a more, in terms of moral social norm, injustice, and more, M-O-R-E-S, if you turned up to a funeral in a bikini, as an example. So there's that next level of social norm. And then you've got taboo. And a taboo, we use it quite flippantly in the English language. Oh yeah, that's really taboo. A taboo is actually really quite poignant if you think about it deeply, because a taboo really is something that is unspoken and unsaid, and it's quite shameful to talk about it. So talking about how much you earn, for example, in the UK is really quite a taboo thing to do. Well, it certainly was 100 years ago. Nowadays, that's changed a little bit. In Germany, it's very normal to talk about how much you earn. And that links really closely to women in entrepreneurship and in the corporate world, because if there's no parity of how much men and women earn, it's very difficult to be able to know whether or not there is injustice in how people are being paid. So it's changing in the UK with the laws that have come in recent years, but it's still something that is still in the early onset of changing the taboo. Another taboo that she gives, Chanel, marrying more than one person. You know, that is taboo. It's against the law in many parts of the world, and it can cause real pain to others in the community, and the person is excluded from the group. You know, it's a really, you turn up in a bikini to a funeral, people might dislike you for a while, but actually that can kind of be forgiven. If you decide that you're going to move somewhere where you are able to marry more than one person, it might actually be something that becomes quite taboo, especially if they've been in a culture where monogamy is the law. And then the last one, the highest form of social norm is the law, or the criminal justice system. And this enforces unsavory, morally corrupt and wrong behaviour from this stops it, doesn't enforce it. This attempts to, because it doesn't stop it, it attempts to move away from that behavior or re-educate that behavior. Now, the problem with all of these things, and we said it at the very beginning and it's no cliffhanger, is that social norms are subjective. They are completely subjective, and other than the law, the folkways, the mores and the taboos are all something that we can do something about. And we're having comments come in from all over, from on the Instagram feed and on LinkedIn, and people are fascinated by this, which is absolutely brilliant, because I am too. You have to, as a society or as a group, collectively agree. You have to collectively agree that a behavior or a type of behavior is unacceptable. You have to internalize it, and then you have to act it out. Now, as women, we have to make a decision to not accept the social norms that we don't like. And we cannot change social norms unless we start actively working against them. So until we start going out without shaving our legs en masse, and by the way, a lot of my sister's age who are 15, it's very normal to not shave under your arms or shave your legs anymore. So our generation, a couple of generations above that, really, you know, we have had that instilled in us. So a big thing for this, for you here today, and some of the coaching that's about to happen for you, is to realize for yourself which social norms are not serving you, which folkways, which mores are not serving you, which taboos do you feel it is necessary to challenge. And there might be laws that you want to challenge too, but there's a due process and diligence that you have to go through to do that. I was speaking with Iffy Thomas earlier today, and she was telling me a law that's just been passed around second generation immigrants into the UK. And I didn't even know that this law had been passed. And so we are able through the constructs in the Western world to speak up, but we cannot guarantee that we will change the law. We cannot guarantee that we will change the law. But en masse, if we choose as women to go against social norms, we have to do it collectively in order for the social norm to change. So we might have one pioneer, one person who goes out and does something, and they get enough media attention and people jump on the bandwagon, and that can expedite things, that can speed things up, very much so. But unless everybody has a collective agreement, internalizes for themselves that it's okay, and makes it a regular part of their life, nothing will change. Nothing. So to come back to what Lou was saying earlier on, what Louise was saying, until children are wearing clothes that are all different colours, and boys are wearing pink and girls are wearing blue, and everybody is wearing what they want to wear without the colour ascribing to their gender, that social norm will continue to exist. So we have to start normalising what we want. So the first coaching question today is, as a woman, and I know that Rayanna already knows the answer to this question, what is one social norm that we can collectively agree? No, let's start on the personal first. Let's just start with you for a start. That you decide is not serving you from living a life that you love. Not serving you to help you live a life that you love, because that is something that I am deeply passionate about. So take a moment to write down for yourself, what is one social norm that does not serve you, that you wish to eradicate in your life? And then the second question is, and this might surprise you, who do you know that already lives by that standard? Because what you now need to do is you now need to connect with people who are living by that standard in order to grow that standard for the social norm to grow. And then the third question is, who do you need to speak to about this for it to gain some kind of momentum? Who do you need to speak to about this for it to gain some kind of momentum? And I'm going to give you a personal example before we then start talking to one another. We have more autonomy today where we sit, again, in the Western world. I caveat that because not everybody does. And the ability to decide fluxes and change in social norms than we have ever had before. And so ideology has got to develop first in order for the social norms to change. And that takes consistent action, constant action from minorities to challenge the social norm until it's accepted. So there are some matriarchal societies that still exist today, and I urge anybody who's interested in this to go and research them, because it's really fascinating. I'll tell you quickly about the history before I give you my personal example of speaking up and finding a community that speaks about this and then sharing it with people that want to know, or who I believe need to know. And that is a very, very long time ago, a very long time ago. And I don't have the dates because this is prehistory. This is pre-written down material. It is said that there was an epic battle between the Western community and an Eastern community. And the Eastern community had a patriarchal society, and the Western community, based in paganism and really deep roots of paganism before paganism existed, had a matriarchal society. And it was the Eastern force that won and moved into what we now call Europe, and that then became the dominating force. Had the matriarchal Western society have won in that time, our system as we know it today, how we live today, would be very, very different. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the source of that, where I heard that in a history podcast, and I'm going to put it on my story so that you can all listen to that, because I found it absolutely fascinating and I didn't have time to research it beforehand. But our situation could have been very different if it wasn't for, apparently, this one huge epic battle that happened between Eastern and Western forces a very, very, very long time ago, prehistory. And before I give my example as well, you can probably tell that this episode is not as much researched as all of the other stuff that I talk about, because I'm starting to go all over the place. But history itself, religion, documentation of religion, and how we understand history is his story. We have to work to correct what we understand of our history, because it's only ever, up until the last 100 years or so, been written by privileged, white, mostly, educated men. Our versions of history come from that lens and that lens alone. So we have to start challenging this by speaking up as women and creating her story or our story and moving our story forward. Right. I'm going to give you my personal example so that I don't just chat away for an hour and don't let anyone speak. So for me, one social norm that I wanted to challenge was talking about periods and menstruation. And so I made it a really, really key part of whenever I was in a room with men, and I found myself talking about my period with my ex-husband, my current partner, and my son in my living room last week. And I said, isn't it amazing that I can sit here and talk about my period and nobody's going, oh, don't. Just flash your mics if you've ever had a conversation about your period or menstruation and someone has gone, oh, do you mind not talking about that, please? Or has given you a funny face. Yeah, right. So there's one of you flashing your mics, but I know that many of you will have had that experience, whether it was at school or in adult life. I want to normalize the conversation around periods, because all of us that menstruate, we deal with this on a monthly basis, sometimes even more than that, and we need to normalize it. So I don't know if you remember, but in the early days of being in the Breakfast with Winners Club, I would talk about periods and menstruation quite a lot. And that's because I had made it my mission to start normalizing me having a conversation in male-dominated spaces about periods and menstruation. I do it around the board table with execs, and it's absolutely fascinating stuff. So that's what I'm doing. Your coaching questions were, what is it that you need to change for yourself to live a life that you love? Who do you know that's already doing that? And who do you think you need to speak to, perhaps a person of influence or people of influence or friends even or family, to start the momentum going? Right, I'm going to stop there because we've got 10 minutes left, and I just want to hear from the collective any thoughts. You don't have to give opinion, but anything that you might have learned today, anything that you're taking away with you, something that you've enjoyed. And I'd like to let you know that on a Tuesday and Thursday, very soon, we're rolling out more rooms that are actually conversational. So it's not just me talking, which I feel I've done a lot of today, but we're learning and that's all good. So flash your mics, folks. We've got Suzanne who's joined us, Hend, we've got Shraddha, we've got Uvashi, we've got Carla, Suad. Flash your mics if you have learned something new and you want to share with us something that you have learned. And if you're not going to flash your mics, I'm going to pick on you. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, Maggie, Dr. Maggie, coming to you.
Hi. Funnily enough, I learned plenty from you, Lucian, but I just want to point out that I learned a big thing from Louise earlier on when she mentioned about having loved football and what she saw in the football world. And I thought, you know what, we women in football really need to step out and do more. I'm a female football coach for the FA, and I think sometimes because it's such a male-dominated environment, we're so focused on the kids that we're bringing up and we're coaching that actually we forget to reach out to these sort of mums on the sideline, for instance, and these other women in football and say, get involved. So I think, you know, I've definitely learned that there's definitely a need to start off some sort of little movement in that direction. But yeah, wonderful class, Lucian. So thank you. And thank you, Louise, for highlighting your love of football.
Yeah, love that. Louise is flashing in excitement. Did you want to come in, Louise, or were you just clapping?
I just want to say thank you. That's brilliant. And I actually ended up sort of losing my love of football kind of as a result of how I felt, which is quite sad. But yeah, so I think it's great that you're doing what you're doing, and I do see girl football teams now when I see my sons playing, and it just makes me smile because, you know, it's that encouragement at those younger ages that's going to really help bring quality, I think, to sport and hobbies, and sort of making sure that, you know, any gender can join in with whatever they, you know, their heart desires, really.
Yeah, brilliant. And last year, tail end of last year, I was brought in to learn a bit more about Birmingham City Women's Football Club and about the Super League and about the money and the funding that had come in for women's teams as well. And they've asked me to work with their team on mindset. And a big part of that conversation, and this was a room full of men, was talking about how important it is to understand the menstrual cycle, which was absolutely fascinating, because when we're talking about peak performance, we need to really, really know this stuff about ourselves, not only if we're athletes, but if we're just as us, as women, we need to know this stuff about ourselves, about our hormonal fluctuations, about when we are at peak performance, when we might be at low performance. And the world of football for women is changing. And Dr. Maggie, it would be fantastic to speak to you a little bit more about your experience as a female coach for the FA. So maybe one day we could talk about that and we could bring you on the podcast. That would be great if you would be open to doing that. I would love that. Brilliant stuff. Okay, anybody else learn anything or wants to chip in around social norms and what they are going to start challenging? Is there anybody here brave enough to talk about what they want to start challenging? Hend, I'm going to come to you. Hend, you were flashing.
Yeah, hi. So I'm so sorry because I just keep getting phone calls, and so I miss parts of this amazing conversation.
That's okay.
So I'm not quite sure whether what I will say will be of relevance, but if I may, the reason why I joined in the first place, and I actually found it extremely fascinating. I'm currently doing my master's in psychology, and it so happened that just a few weeks ago I was writing a paper, and it was related to gender differences when it comes to stress and perception of stress and coping mechanisms. So I would really like to just share that and hear what you have to say about it, if it's of any relevance. If it's not,
yeah,
please stop me.
Absolutely, okay. Always, please.
Yeah. So actually, the perception of stress, although research is not really conclusive, and there are so many opposing results, but still you would find it more salient that results that support the hypothesis that women tend to perceive situations as more stressful than men do. similar situations. So there is the perception of stress, and one of the main reasons that were given for that was that women tend to feel stress more due to living for too long in such a patriarchal society where they don't feel that they have so much power. They are literally not that empowered. So the feeling of helplessness makes them feel more stressed about what's happening in their lives. And the other part was about the coping mechanisms and the difference that women tend to resort to the emotional coping mechanisms versus men who tend to resort to the practical coping mechanisms. And this was explained by the gender socialization, that because women are expected to be more emotional and giving, and they socialize more, tend to be more family oriented, community oriented. So these are the tend to be the mechanisms that they would use, versus men who are supposed to be not expected to be emotional. So they resort to being more practical. So yeah, that's what I've come across just a few weeks ago, and I just like to share, and I hope I didn't take too long, and I hope this was of any relevance, and I'd love to hear anything about that from you.
Yeah, brilliant, Hen. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing that with us. Yes, this is an open space for us to talk about any research that we're doing related to this, and we are about equality. We're about bringing equality to the world and realigning the balance. So anything that helps us to understand what's going on, any knowledge and understanding helps us to further that balance, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, maybe we will do an episode on patriarchy and matriarchy. That would be quite an interesting one. And Hen, perhaps you would like to join us for that and share a bit more of your expertise. We're here every Wednesday from 1 o'clock, and this room is all about learning and a bit of self-coaching, and also a nice time for me to be able to showcase the collective of extraordinary women, which is an absolutely phenomenal community that I love so dearly. Brilliant. So what I would say about stress is that it's fascinating to me when you look at studies of the corporate world, and how the people here listening will have heard me say this before. It was designed for men by men, and women are now there. And so an analogy that I would love to use for us challenging societal norms is one that's used to describe the economy from America to the UK, which is when America sneezes, the UK catches a cold. And what I would love for us all to be doing is to be sneezing for the rest of the world to catch the cold, because there are still so many parts of the world where women are mutilated, where women are not allowed to leave their homes after a certain time in the evening, where women are not allowed to walk the streets alone, where women are not allowed to speak their opinion, where women are not allowed to love the people that they want to love. And it is a very, very small part of the population where women have free will. The laws for women to vote and take part in the economy have been so recent in history, and they are the byproduct of a sneeze that has created a cold, and we need to keep sneezing. I really want to make this clear that so many women around the world need privileged women and men, especially male allies, to be speaking up about what doesn't work for us as a society. And it's so important, because we can believe that everything is okay because we are privileged, some of us in this room, but not everybody is. And we have a duty to keep being activists for change. Okay, does anyone want to share from today? Julie, you're flashing. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I'm outdoors now. I was on a train earlier, so I couldn't join in, but I was able to listen. So thank you, Lucy. A great room. And sorry for the slightly out of breathiness. I think one of the society norms I am faced with, especially the age I am at the moment, is the prospect of becoming even more invisible as you get older. So, you know, women seem to have a shorter expiry date in terms of their usefulness than men do. I mean, it's okay for men to become fathers at the age of 70 or whatever, and it's acceptable. But for women, you know, past the age of, you know, as you come towards the, you know, your 40s or whatever, you sort of start losing, you know, become invisible at the age of 50, you know, you become less of a employable prospect. I mean, it happens to both sexes, but women even more so, because, you know, quite often they haven't developed their careers if they've taken a career break early. Of women's age and their validity, and especially also, you know, if you go on a date. I remember being asked by a guy saying, "How old are you?" And I said, "Well, what of relevance is that?" So, you know, he seemed to think it was relevant. Well, so that's just my share, Lucienne.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one, and age is one of the topics that we will be talking about in this series. I'm having a coughing fit. And I'm really glad that you brought it up about the validity of women because of their age. Right, it's 2:00 and I'm going to close the room because I'm going to have a coughing fit again. Bear with me. I will see you again next week on Wednesday at 1:00. Rayanna, are you there? Would you mind closing the room?
I do not mind closing the room at all. You caught me just as I'd taken